say that you have a sense of humor. Well, I actually really believe I do, because I was here last year. And, and I actually wanted to come back. Because it was an incredible experience. When you are snowed in and have an opportunity to speak by candlelight, how much more intimate can that be? So you get to know people really well. As I ran around with Lorna going to Walmart trying to buy flashlights, and got to learn a little bit about St. Agnes and realize that there are some incredible things that happen here. And there are some incredible people who touch this organization. And to be in your company again is an incredible honor. I just left the home a couple of hours ago, and I was once again just infused with passion and motivation about why this work is so important. And I count it a privilege to stand before you and to share what I hope might be some insight and perhaps some inspiration to encourage you to go on and support this beautiful organization further. You see, when you look in my eyes, do you see a little boy wanting to be loved by a family? When you look at my face, now with no shame or disgrace, please remember I'm still trying to run this race. Trying to be what I wish you'd see. A boy who's a part of your family. Oh, what I'd do if I could start anew and rest among the chosen few. You see, I'd cry no more tears for the yesteryears, but I'd smile with joy for that little boy who became a part of your family. I wrote that poem because it is the poem of my experience and the experience of countless other little boys and girls who desperately want to be a part of a family and are given that opportunity because of places like St. Agnes. You see, when I was born to a 15-year-old mom, she didn't have the benefit of a St. Agnes. And consequently, my mother struggled trying to figure out where she would fit in, how she was going to make it. She, 3.5 years later, had another baby boy, my little brother, and during that process developed an addiction to heroin. I became the little man in my house. I learned how to change my brother's diapers and to make bottles of milk while my mother pursued her raging addiction. Well, there was one day my mother went out to pursue that addiction in New York City while we were living in the basement brownstone apartment, and she didn't come back. And after being there for an undetermined amount of time, I defied my mom's rules. I opened the door and I walked out of our apartment and I went looking for help and food. And I was found by a police officer going through the trash, trying, I guess, to find something to eat. And I was in dirty clothes and no shoes and was able to show the police officer where we lived. And that's how we came into foster care. Well, we had lots of loving homes. We moved from place to place, while they were trying to figure out what was going to happen with my mom, who didn't have the benefit of working through her issues and getting support or the real opportunity to seriously parent. But one of the things that I did come to later know was that my mom, when her mother learned that she was pregnant, took her back then in 1963. They didn't have legal places for abortions. So she took her to this place called Quonset Hut. And my mother was laying on the table about to give me away. And she defied her mother, jumped off the table, and ran out of the facility. And I often think, and I wonder, a 15-year-old with a mother who said, "This is what's in your best interest. finding the courage to defy that and knowing that life is precious and that there was a baby growing inside her whose life had value. My mother listened to her instincts, that voice that said, this is life. And so later it would have it that after my brother would journey and I would journey through the foster care system, and there were many highs and lows, and as I said, we had some good homes and some that were not so good. And eventually my brother and I got separated, and he went on to get adopted, and I never did. I never got that dream of that home that I wanted so desperately. And I wondered through my life, I wondered, why me? Why? Why did I have to experience this kind of disappointment and trying to find myself and figuring out where I belong and what was I really here for? And then after I defied all the odds, all the expectations, after moving from place to place during high school and struggling with my grades initially, I surprised everyone and graduated as my class valedictorian. It was then that I surprised myself too, and so I remember calling up foster parents and telling them, I'm actually valedictorian. And the reaction over and over again was, are you sure you're telling the truth? Because I had a little reputation growing up too for exaggerating quite a few things. And so I was able to show them that now I was on my way. And I began to dream of a world with unlimited possibilities. But one thing that I decided was I was not going to have anything to do with child welfare, child abuse and neglect, or social workers, anything. So I wasn't going to major in social work. And I went off to college, and that's where I majored in healthcare management. And it was when I got my first job at Children's Hospital as an administrator in Washington, D.C., and we were dealing with the border baby crises, and I was watching babies dropped off in hospitals in numbers that we can't even begin to count because parents didn't have a safe place to have their children and be supported. That I looked at those otherwise healthy babies and I said, who am I to walk around here as if I were not one of them? What if people knew the place I came from? You see, they see me now as this articulate black man. But what if they knew that I was one of these babies? Might it provide opportunities for them? And so I called up an agency and I asked them how could I help, and that was the beginning of the rest of my journey in this work. I realized then why I was supposed to be here. I realized that the pain was with purpose. And that it gives me an opportunity to stand before people like you when I can say, every life has value. And when we mobilize our resources to support young women in crises, we don't know who that child is destined to be. But what we can celebrate is the fact that we had a hand in it. And so now I'm able to go back to all the different people who had no idea of the difference they were making in my life as I was on my journey to become me. On a journey that would someday lead me to a place like here and now. To help you see those little boys wanting to be loved by a family. You see, it's not the amount of money you give that makes the difference in the lives of these young women and their children. It's the fact that you give. Whether it's of your time, your talent, your resources, just give. Our children desperately need you to show them they have value. When I sat at the home earlier this evening, and I need to just be truthful, there was a little bit of a crisis perhaps going on with a young woman who was not sure whether she wanted to stay. And when I sat there in the living room with those women and we talked, and I shared with them the experience that I had as a teen dad, and that I did have the benefit of a home like St. Agnes, as my girlfriend, who was also in foster care, wanted to do the right thing. And I saw her grow. I saw her save her money and buy pots and pans for the apartment we would someday have. And it made me really step up to the plate. And I was sharing this with the young women, and I was telling them how when you respect yourself and you value yourself, it's amazing what you can bring out of a young man. And as we talked and we laughed about our shared experiences, I saw the disposition of that young woman begin to change. When I looked at her in her eye and I said, there is no substitute in your child's life for you. There is no rule too great for you to follow for your child. And it was funny that by the end of the visit, she wanted to come here this evening, but the truth of the matter is we're serving alcohol, so we can't bring teenagers in here. But the fact was, she began to realize once again hope and the possibilities, because someone showed up outside of her circle and said, you matter. Your life has value. That's what, ladies and gentlemen, this evening is about. Yes, it's a great meal. Yes, we get to dress up. And we get to make appearances and do all the right things. But it's about the lives. It's about raising the future. Making sure that we give back that which was given to us. So I shared in closing with the young woman how much it meant to me that when my daughter was born, while we were in that teen mother's home in the Bronx, that when they brought my baby girl out to me in my arms, I remember she was quivering, and they put her in my arms and she stopped. And she barely opened her eyes and she looked up at me. And I looked back at her and I said, you will never know the kind of pain I knew. I promise you that. And when she graduated from high school, and I was able to look her in the eye and know I kept my promise. That as a teen father, against all the odds, I kept my promise. That means more to me than any of the awards or national recognition or folks that I get to hobnob with, knowing that I was there as a teen dad for my child because of people like you. So I salute you. I applaud you. I want you to know there could be no greater calling than to give of yourself to young women trying the best way they know how to make it. This is God's work. We are God's people doing the right thing. God bless you all and have a good night.